Welcome to the Business of Fatherhood. I'm your host, Ben Cloy, and you might be wondering, what's this podcast about? It's got an interesting title, Business and Fatherhood. It sounds really cool. I hope it is really cool, but let me tell you a little bit of backstory on this title. It's about fatherhood, but it's also about business. Because what I've had to learn the hard way in my life is that most men get caught up in the career-minded growth of, as long as I'm the provider for my family, as long as I climb the ladder, keep providing, keep doing what I'm doing, everything will work out. What I had to learn the hard way was that was not the way that it works out. It leads to a place where you struggle to come home, you try to find your purpose at work, but you often just feel like you're running around in a circle. And when you come home, it doesn't create a sense of excitement, it creates a sense of anxiety. And so the Business of Fatherhood is a daily, 5-day-a-week podcast where it is going to be short 5 to 7 episodes with me coming on the microphone and sharing a story, a piece of wisdom, a perspective, whatever it may be that we need to hear as dads on this particular day. But it's going to be a daily 5-day-a-week podcast. Now you might be asking, what qualifies me to be doing this podcast? Well, I've been in many of the shoes of the dads that I'm talking to, and you're listening right now. I was a Marine Corps veteran that transitioned out of the military, went to college, got a job, started a family, get all the things that everybody said I was supposed to do, but didn't find what I was supposed to be looking for and what I was looking for. I had to learn the hard way after dropping out of the College of Engineering that a love of electricity didn't make me good at it, and that a piece of paper isn't going to make me happy. Only I can make myself happy. But man, that was a long road. That seems like forever ago, and that was just in 2014 when I dropped out of that college. My daughter was 2 years old at the time, and I remember looking inside her eyes and wondering, how can I lead you into your life if I can barely lead myself through mine? And that was a dark moment for me because at the same time, there was kind of this 30-year midlife crisis that I was going through. And at that reflection point of turning 30, I was in a deep thought of, I think I'm going to reach the end of my life, and it's not going to matter that I was here. Other than my immediate family, I don't think anybody was going to come out to my funeral and say, I'm really glad Ben Cloy was here in my life. Now, that was when I turned 30. I'm now 36 at the time of this recording. And in those short 6 years, I feel like a completely different person because I had to ask a lot of hard questions to grow through that story and rewrite it in many ways. And my story really started to change when someone gave me this powerful question that if I wanted a result in my life I've never had, then I needed to start doing things I've never done. Now, the question made sense, but I had to think about what result hadn't I achieved, but I kept trying. And that result was friends. I never had significant amount of friends in my life. I never felt connected to other people in a way that I craved. And I had to ask the other hard question, well, why wasn't that? And the answer to this was almost too funny to believe, but it was the answer that I was using in my head, that every person I would talk to was just like that high school girl that said no. And so that moment was uncomfortable. So let's just avoid it altogether. And every person could reject you. So let's just not talk to people. Well, once I said that out loud, I realized that's not a good thought to have. And if I really truly want friends, I have to change this thought, change the feelings behind it, and rewrite the story. I did that when I went to a park. There was a park in our subdivision, and I was always going there, and there was always other dads. And I wanted to say hello. I so desperately wanted to say hello, but the thought in my head was always, they probably just want to play with their kids. They probably had a long day at the office just like I did, and who am I to interrupt that moment for them? Well, on the other side of this question, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so when I did it, I learned a very important component, that they wanted to say hello just as bad as I did. We were both just playing chicken. And so from that moment, when I learned to say hello to another dad at the park, I realized what I was really missing. I missed having connection with other dads, with other men, because we were never wired to do life alone. But yet that's exactly how we've set up our life in 2021. That men should go off into the office and we should have all these lives and outside of the family and not have a lot of great connection with men to help do life, to enjoy a game of golf or whatever it may be. I didn't have any of that. And so I had to grow through that. And growing through that meant on the other side of hello, I kept repeating that. I'm like, this is really cool. And the third dad that I talked to was a veteran that I'm still friends with today. And I was like, wow, did that just happen? And so fast forward through all of that, there was lots of growth journey. There's lots of asking hard questions. There's lots of starting to do things that seem really uncomfortable. And it began with a podcast in 2019 focused on military dads. And that podcast had a simple mission: to bring every dad home. And that podcast is still running today, helping military dads come home. But what I realized through that podcast is that word home. That word home was something that started in the beginning, but it took almost 2 years to fully unpack what that word truly meant. And what I've learned through talking and coaching with dads is that home is a feeling, not a building. And most men go off into the world to try to find that feeling and all the things that we are told to create as men, but we never actually find it. Because that feeling starts on the inside and comes from the outside and goes to the outside. It's not the other way around. Nobody in your life can help you feel that feeling of home. It is nobody's responsibility to accept making you happy. That's yours. So what I learned through this process of the podcast is that every dad, not just military dads, are looking for this feeling of home. And therein lies this podcast, is where it was born. It is born out of this idea that within fatherhood, there are men within the corporate community that have climbed the corporate ladder and are worried about maybe they've left their family behind. Because it is so easy to focus on a career, to find our purpose, to find our identity at work. But what we do on this earth is important, whether it be building a business, whether it be any of the things that men go off into the world to do. But what we leave behind is 10 times more important. And that is the second component that my first podcast taught me, is legacy. Legacy is focusing on what we leave behind. And the primary legacy of our life will be our family, will be our kids. What type of wisdom and connection did we create in their life to help give them the confidence to go off into the world and change it? That is what this podcast is focused on. It is helping you understand your role as a father. It is helping you understand how some of the same things that you do in business apply at home. There are so many different leadership concepts within business that apply at home. A very simpler one is at work, often people can think that you're the idea man and it's on you to figure it all out. But once you study leadership, you're not the idea man. You're just creating the environment where ideas can grow and thrive. And those ideas come from your employees. That same idea applies at home. The best way to help figure out how to connect with your kids is not so that you have all the ideas, because it's not all on you to have all the ideas at work. It's up to you to help create an environment where those ideas can flourish. So the best way to get ideas to do things at home is ask your kids. And I call this giving your kids the keys to the bus. Ask them, hey, we've got a Saturday coming up. What would you guys like to do? Or, hey kids, dad's got 10 minutes. What do you want to do? And what you can learn through that simple question, in as little as 10 minutes of intentional time with your kids, you can change everything. And kids are always being looked to be led by their father, no matter what age. So whatever age you are listening to this podcast, whether your kids are 5, 10, 15, or 30, restarting your relationship with your kids is never too late. Because a relationship with your father is one of the most important grounding mechanisms within a child's life. Because if they feel confident and loved by their father, that will carry on through their life in all the areas that they go off in the world and do. And like I said, that is what this podcast is focused on. This is the type of message we'll be bringing every day for those 5 short daily episodes, is how will we help you become a better dad? How can I help you understand that what you do at work applies at home? How can I help elevate your role at home to understand how you can find different ways to be more of who you are? Something that we often get mixed up within fatherhood is this idea of becoming human doings. And what that looks like is this giant to-do list that you go into your office with every day and you focus on that. Or maybe you come home and you still got your to-do list. And that to-do list needs to get done. But I want to remind you, and it will be a common theme within this podcast, is reminding you you are not a human doing. You are a human being. And a human being is what fatherhood looks like. It is what coming home looks like. It is what making that feeling of home come from the inside out. How can you learn to be more of who you are in the primary environment and the one environment that is going to leave an impact well beyond your time on this earth, and that is your family. So with that, this is the business of fatherhood, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.